Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi, you're very welcome. This is Reading the Past and I'm Dr. Cat. I saw the topic for today's video get suggested in the comments section beneath another one of the videos on my channel. Now, in the interim, I have lost that original comment, so I'm not quite sure who I should be thanking for this particular video idea. But I did remember the request, so I reckon we're halfway there at least. Today we're exploring William Shakespeare's Hamlet, which has come up previously on my channel as part of my discussion about bad quartos, and I'm going to leave that video linked. But now we are going to come at the play from a different angle, because in this video we're going to be paying particular attention to the presentation of faith within the world of the play, and perhaps together we'll be able to decide whether Hamlet the character is a Roman Catholic, or whether the entire play itself is a crypto-Catholic text. Let's go. So firstly, why are we concerned with the faith of a theatrical character, or of the fictional world of the play that he inhabits? Principally, I think we must credit the fame of Shakespeare and the reach of his works for this particular interest, and that's especially when we consider that it's coupled with a relatively sparse biography for the man, the author himself. There is for some, apparently, a perception that text production, especially in the case of fiction, is in some part autobiographical. As such, they look to the works that have been left behind by William Shakespeare and see them as useful materials from which we will be able to reconstruct his life and personality. And while I'm aware that there are those that have invested a vast amount of time on this particular research path, honestly, it's never been one that's spoken to me especially. And that's because I prefer to explore the works of Shakespeare and his contemporaries within their wider historical, social, material, and indeed textual context. Nevertheless, I do think it is valuable to offer a quick overview as to why the faith question comes up in relation to a few of Shakespeare's works, and perhaps most of all in the case of Hamlet. If we do a quick Google search, it quickly becomes clear that the faith of the Shakespeares is, was, and remains a contested question. And as some will argue, perhaps it's possible that his plays can provide the answer to that very question. It has been argued that despite the change in religion, the Shakespeare family remained Roman Catholics. Much has been made of William's mother's original Arden surname. She was a distant cousin of Edward Arden, who was executed for his alleged part in a Roman Catholic-inspired plot against Elizabeth I. Additionally, the fact that William's father was permitted to hold municipal office during the reign of Mary I has been offered as evidence of his continued Roman Catholic faith. John Shakespeare was appointed to the role of ale taster in 1556. For proof that he remained unchanged in matters of religion in the next reign, that of Elizabeth I, researchers have pointed to a couple of things. One, to the fact that John Shakespeare was cited in 1592 for non-attendance at church. Some argue that this is caused by his distaste for the Elizabethan Church of England, while others argue that John's known financial struggles may have been the more pressing cause. They argued that he was keen to avoid those he owed money to, and so he stayed away from the places they would be, like church. The second proof is the survival of these wall paintings in the Guild Chapel, Stratford-upon-Avon. At the start of Elizabeth's reign in 1559, a royal injunction was issued that demanded the removal of images from all places of worship. 4 years later, John Shakespeare, in his role of Chamberlain of the Corporation of Stratford, a role which he had assumed in 1558, authorised a payment of 2 shillings for, quote, defacing images in the chapel, end quote. While the face of the Archangel Michael in the Allegory of Death painting was scratched away, the majority of the images were simply lime-washed. Rather than destroy them, this served to protect them, and it's the thing that allows them to be viewed by us today. So, was this lacklustre attempt at defacing proof of the reverence with which John Shakespeare viewed these images? Or, alternatively, is this just what 2 shillings buys you in the icon defacing market? Is it simply the case that John and his fellow municipal officers were keen to cut financial corners wherever possible? This is Editing Cat here because some of the audio went funny for this next bit, so I'm going to show you this picture of Shakespeare's birthplace while I re-record. I don't know if this should be classed as evidence or not, but so the story goes. A bricklayer working on this house in 1757 found a pamphlet that affirmed the Roman Catholic faith of John Shakespeare, which also apparently bore his signature. That document is now lost, and its authenticity was queried from very early on. Nevertheless, the way it has been described does seem to conform to a type of text that was being spread by Jesuits like Edmund Campion at around the same and therefore appropriate time. I don't know if it just feels a bit too convenient. This incredibly instructive item that's a singular survivor, at least to my knowledge, of a document bearing John Shakespeare's signature that also happens to act as an announcement of his true and, at the time, very dangerous faith. But maybe I'm just being too cynical. If Shakespeare's family did maintain their Roman Catholic faith, did they pass that faith on to their children? Was it a faith that those children would follow into their adulthood? Eamon Duffy notes that William Shakespeare's marriage to Anne Hathaway took place outside of Stratford and that it was conducted by an old Roman Catholic priest, John Frith, a man whose own faith was cause for suspicion in the eyes of the authorities. Did young Shakespeare choose to be married in the faith he held dear? Or was Frith simply the nearest priest available for this couple's shotgun wedding? But Duffy also points to the fact that William Shakespeare did not attend the Anglican Communion at Easter for 9 years while he was living in Southwark, and this is despite the fact that it was illegal to miss the service. Duffy states that, quote, Shakespeare's treatment of Catholic themes is consistently sympathetic. Friars, nuns, and the religious life get a remarkably good press for him. Anglican clergy, by contrast, a bad one. Duffy concludes that Shakespeare was, quote, a church papist, outwardly conforming but inwardly rejecting Protestant teaching. Many decades after the death of William Shakespeare, the Anglican clergyman Archdeacon R. Davis would claim that the playwright, quote, died a papist. It's telling that this person is an Anglican clergyman, because presumably he would have little interest in claiming Shakespeare for Catholicism, as that's not his faith. Instead, it's been suggested that in doing this, Davies was simply repeating a narrative that had become local tradition that he had then heard. So what might this mean for Shakespeare's works, for the way we engage with them, and especially, in the case of today's video, what it means for Hamlet? Well, for those invested in locating Shakespeare's autobiography within the world of his drama, I can see why Hamlet is a particularly compelling choice. It does seem like it must be more than coincidental that Shakespeare would choose to call his lead character Hamlet in the aftermath of his only son Hamnet's death in 1596, doesn't it? That this play about death, ghosts, and bitter vengeance should be the product of a grieving father feels somehow fitting. Frustratingly, the writer's personal motivations and inspirations do remain secret to him. But what we can trace are the textual sources for Shakespeare's story. There is, for example, the history of Amleth, Prince of Denmark, which is recounted in the 12th century Danish history that was compiled in Latin by Saxo the grammarian. And this version takes us to pre-Christian Denmark. Amleth's father, Horrendil, and if I've butchered that, I apologise, has been murdered by his envious but fantastically named brother, Feng. Feng then married his dead brother's wife, Gerutha. Unlike Shakespeare's version, this murder is not secret. There's no ghost needed to tell of it, as there is no doubt about Feng's guilt. Nor was there any question about what Amleth's response to the murder should be, because in the 1100s in Denmark, revenge is a filial obligation. So it's a far less complicated and knotty issue than it was in the time of Shakespeare and his contemporaries. Amleth does display signs of mental instability, but it's clear that it's feigned, designed to save him from his uncle's henchmen. In the end, Amleth's mother helps him to kill his uncle and her new husband, and Amleth becomes King of Denmark. It is also believed that there was an earlier English Hamlet play than the one we know, and this is referred to as the Hamlet. The 18th century Shakespeare scholar and editor Edmund Malone suggests that there was a version of Hamlet on the stage as early as 1589, while the Elizabethan theatre impresario Philip Henslowe makes record of there being a Hamlet staged at Newington Butts in 1594. What is unclear is whether the Hamlet was an early version by Shakespeare or something that was written by someone else that then went on to inspire Shakespeare's own work. The Hamlet we know is a late Elizabethan play where the precise date of creation and first staging is somewhat hard to discern, but the Norton Shakespeare offers 1600 for that date, while in 1602 there is an entry made in the Stationers' Register of, quote, a book called The Revenge of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, as it was lately acted by the Lord Chamberlain, his servants. Also, there may be a clue to the appropriate date in this reference, in Act 2, Scene 2, to, quote, an eyrie of children, little eyases. These are performing children who have stolen the applause of theatre-goers from their elders and better. Here we have Rosencrantz. Nay, their endeavour keeps in the wonted pace, but there is, sir, an eyrie of children, little eyases, that cry out on the top of question and are most tyrannically clapped for it. These are now the fashion, and so berattle the common stages, so they call them, that many wearing rapiers are afraid of goose quills, and dare scarce come thither. In London, in 1601, a company of boy players were enjoying great success at the Blackfriars Theatre, at the expense of the adult companies who were performing at other venues. So potentially, this lays the case for 1601 being the likeliest date for the composition of Hamlet. And around this time, Shakespeare is also probably writing the far more cheerful play, Twelfth Night. Remaining, if I may, on the topic of the theatre at Blackfriars, because the success of the boy players there would arguably have had an extra sting in the tail for Shakespeare's company, the Lord Chamberlain's Men. And that's because in 1596, James Burbage had bought the Blackfriars space and converted it into an indoor theatre for the Lord Chamberlain's Men to use in the winter. It was a place they could charge a higher cost for admission. There were, however, complaints and petitions from those who lived nearby that sought to prevent the company from using the space, and they were successful because the company would not perform there until 1608, by which point they had become the King's Men. To prevent the venture being a total loss for Burbage, he chose to lease his space to a company of boy players. Those boy players then became extraordinarily successful, and I can imagine that that success must have felt like a pretty bitter pill for the Lord Chamberlain's Men to swallow. So, is this what inspired Shakespeare to give these particular lines to Rosencrantz? There is more contemporary context which I think is significant to the world of the play and its creation, because in addition to the dealings at the Blackfriars, In 1600-1601, so as a new century begins, an ageing and childless queen sits upon the English throne. Although it was treason to think it, let alone speak it aloud, the fact remained that Elizabeth would at some point die, and the succession to her throne still remained an unclear thing. Of course, a likely, and as it was eventually successful candidate, was James VI of Scots. So, was Fortinbras, King of Norway, the person who ends up as King of Denmark at the very end of Hamlet, in fact meant to be a stand-in for James? He is another foreign prince from an enemy nation who would eventually take up the English crown after all. Hamlet is a play of plots and schemes, and Elizabeth's reign had certainly weathered its own fair share of plots. One was recent. It had occurred in 1601, and it is called the Essex Rebellion. Elizabeth's one-time favourite, Robert Devereux, 2nd Earl of Essex, would ultimately fail in his plot, and he would have his life end on the executioner's block on the 25th of February 1601. Tellingly, I think, for the creation of Hamlet, particularly if it may have occurred around this time, Shakespeare and his company had been tangentially but still dangerously connected to Essex and his uprising. I discussed this connection in my video on Shakespeare's Richard II, which I will also be leaving linked. This play's connection to the lived experience of many Elizabethans does, however, not end there. The world of Hamlet is a world of surveillance. People spend their time watching other people and passing comment, even judgment upon them. Indeed, Stephen Greenblatt describes Hamlet as, quote, the observed of all observers. He is a person allowed virtually no privacy, who is himself guilty of spying. And in Elizabethan England, particularly as her reign went on, spying was essentially a national pastime. And for many, this fact is memorialised in the rainbow portrait. The eyes and ears on Elizabeth's mantle have been read by many as a reminder, perhaps even a threat, regarding the reach of the royal intelligence networks. Of course, I will leave a link to my video that explores the rainbow portrait in even more depth as well. Privately, William Shakespeare would also have been bracing himself for another personal tragedy that could arguably have given him the inspiration to pen Hamlet. I have, of course, already mentioned the tragic loss of little Hamlet in 1596 when that boy was aged just 11 years old. But in 1600 to 1601, William's father John was beset by failing health. John would die in September 1601. Perhaps Shakespeare felt himself to be beset by ghosts, haunted by them even. Could that be why he was able to write into existence one of the most famous ghosts to ever exist in all of English literature? Is it telling, do you think, that tradition has it that Shakespeare himself played the ghost when the Lord Chamberlain's men staged Hamlet? Certainly, it is with the ghost that the questions about the faith of Shakespeare and his characters may be seen to originate, and that happens in Act 1, Scene 5. I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain time to walk the night, and for the day confined to fast in fires, till the foul crimes done in my days of nature are burnt and purged away. But that I am forbid to tell the secret of my prison house, I could a tale unfold whose lightest word would harrow up thy soul, freeze thy young blood, make thy two eyes, like stars, start from their spheres. The knotted and combined locks to part, and each particular hair to stand on end, like quills upon the fearful portapine. But this eternal blazon must not be to ears of flesh and blood. List, list, oh list, if thou didst ever thy dear father love. The early church was at first reticent to incorporate the notion of ghosts, but this attitude shifted with an increasing emphasis on purgatory as a real place. Formerly, the human spirit would of course not want to leave the perfection of heaven to visit earth, while hell is an infernal place where the human spirit is eternally trapped. But as purgatory rises in prominence, it's recognised as a space that is more liminal. A soul in purgatory might, it was believed, return to harass their nearest and dearest into, for example, buying more masses for their soul so they may be released into heaven sooner. Or they might even return to see out some unfinished business, like avenging their murder, the usurpation of their throne, and the bedding of their wife by their brother. The problem is that purgatory is a Roman Catholic place, a place that the Reformed religion rejects. Neil MacGregor explains that, quote, "When the ghost of Hamlet's father appears, he speaks not in the language of Lutheran Protestantism, but in older terms of a soul suffering in purgatory." Equally, Eamon Duffy points out, quote, "There would still have been old people when Shakespeare was young, saying the rosary, crossing themselves when there was thunder, using holy water. Catholic beliefs remained current in one form or another, especially around things like funerals, for a very long time." So perhaps what we're seeing here is William Shakespeare allowing his Roman Catholic faith to slip out, either on purpose or by accident. Alternatively, perhaps he is just referring to commonly held, recognisable beliefs that are partially a hangover from the old faith. Could that be why he allows Polonius, here in Act 2, Scene 1, to partake in the old Catholic fashion of swearing by the Mass? Is Shakespeare simply staging recognisable customs and linguistic quirks that his audience will recognise and therefore perhaps feel comfortable with? Alternatively, maybe the doctrinally questionable appearance of the ghost was both intentional and in line with the state religion of the day. Could Shakespeare be staging this ghost in this way to make his audience question his protagonist? Because without a purgatory, spectres like this might be assumed to be demonic in nature. Things sent to draw humans into evil, like violence or murder, for example. Could it even be that Hamlet is being shown to be seeing things that are not and were not ever there? Is the presence of this ghost supposed to be a hint at Hamlet's mental instability? Is it there to cause the audience to doubt him? Indeed, Hamlet himself verbalises the possibility that the apparition he has seen may be demonic in nature. He does this in Act 2, Scene 2, and this thought provides the impetus for him to resolve to test the ghost's claims. He will do this with a play that is designed to force his uncle to show his guilt. "The spirit that I have seen may be a devil, and the devil hath power to assume a pleasing shape, yea, and perhaps out of my weakness and my melancholy, as he is very potent with such spirits, abuses me to damn me. I'll have grounds more relative than this. The play's the thing, wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king." Further to this, if we look at Hamlet's most famous to be or not to be speech, right near the very end, we have the following passage. "But that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have, than fly to others that we know not of." Feel free to disagree, but in this I see no overt reference to there being a purgatory. Interestingly, we are presented with a discussion regarding a religious rite in Act 5, Scene 1 of the play. Here we see Laertes and the priest in the aftermath of the, quote, "maimed rites" of Ophelia's funeral. Laertes says, "What ceremony else?" Priest responds, "Her obsequies have been as far enlarged as we have warranty. Her death was doubtful, And but that great command, oh, sways the order, she should in ground unsanctified been lodged till the last trumpet. For charitable prayers, shards, flints, and pebbles should be thrown on her. Yet here she is allowed her virgin krantz, her maiden struments, and the bringing home of bell and burial. Laertes, must there no more be done? Priest, no more be done. We should profane the service of the dead, to sing a requiem and such rest to her as to peace-parted souls. Here, the priest is making reference to the suspicion that Ophelia had taken her own life. In early modern Christendom, this was a mortal sin for both the Roman Catholic and the Protestant faith. It's a crime against God by damaging the person of yourself. As punishment, the deceased's worldly goods might be seized, and they may also be refused Christian burial in consecrated ground. However, Roman Catholicism also taught that the soul of the deceased would be trapped in purgatory, unable to be helped, as masses were not permitted to be sung for their soul. So this isn't quite what's happened here. The rites have been truncated or maimed on account of her doubtful death. It seems, though, that medieval and early modern coroners, aware of the shame, pain, and potential financial ruin that might arise in the aftermath of someone taking their own life, would, in certain cases where possible, seek to offer the benefit of the doubt in their rulings. In Ophelia's case, it seems that the king has intervened with his, quote, great command to order her to be buried in the consecrated ground of the churchyard. No reference here, once again, is being made to the threat of purgatory, or of the potential that her way to heaven might be bought with words or deeds. Instead, we are told that she must wait, quote, till the last trumpet. So maybe everything seems like it's ship-shape and Bristol fashion with regard to the orthodoxy of this message. However, I do think that the mention of charitable prayers and of singing a requiem mass complicates matters. Charitable prayers are works. They frequently involved the intercession of saints, and thus they were a practice that were deemed superstitious by the Reformed faith. Similarly, while singing a requiem might, if we're being kind, refer more broadly to religious music that would be sung at a funeral, I do think that the idea that Shakespeare's audience wouldn't have understood and thought of this as a requiem mass is unlikely, and indeed this question has been and continues to be hotly disputed. Indeed, many years ago now, James Smith posed the following question. Might we not assume that the audience understood the term requiem mass to mean what it had always meant? A mass for the dead, which included, of course, prayers for the repose of the soul. Smith goes on. Now, it is difficult to find a lucid and definite authority on what exactly constituted the orthodox Anglican dogma of the day. Nevertheless, there is a common belief, based on the writings of contemporary Anglican divines, that the one article of faith, free of controversy, was the refusal to permit prayers for the dead. Hamlet calls Ophelia's rites maimed. Laertes calls for more ceremony. Something is missing. But is the missing part supposed to be overtly Roman Catholic rites? And if so, what on earth is Shakespeare doing here? So, what do you think? Is Hamlet William Shakespeare's testimony to his true Roman Catholic beliefs? Is it a crypto-Catholic play? Or are we simply seeing a playwright making reference to recognisable things, even if those recognisable things have been denounced as papist superstition? Is he doing this as a way to connect with his audience? An audience that it is in his vested interest to please, in the hopes that they might frequent the Lord Chamberlain's men's playhouse before all others, particularly that of the boy players. As always, I am looking forward to reading your conversations in the comments section underneath this video, or you can find me on social media. I will leave links to the other places you can find me on the internet in my description box, so do follow me over on some or all of them so we can continue this conversation and start some others. I do hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, why not share it with your friends? Please also let me know you liked it by hitting the thumbs up, and please subscribe to the channel, and also while you're there hit the bell icon beside the subscribe button and then select all in the drop down that will appear so that YouTube can tell you when I've next uploaded. I hope you're going to have a great day whatever you're doing, and I look forward to speaking to you all in my next video. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye for now.